kingdom of Vareth had once been a realm of gold and grace, a place where music drifted through the valleys and wheat swayed like ocean waves under the summer sun. People once told tales of its divine favor, how the gods themselves had blessed its soil and crowned its kings with light. But those stories had turned to ashes. Now, the wind carried nothing but the stench of decay. Fields lay barren, their cracked earth splitting like broken promises. The rivers that once sparkled blue now ran shallow and red with silt, as though bleeding with the people who depended on them. Years of unending war had drained the life from Vareth. Its soldiers no longer fought for glory, but for scraps. Its nobles no longer ruled with honor, but with greed. Disease and famine swept through the villages, sparing no soul, neither king nor beggar. The people whispered of a curse, one older than the crown itself. Some said it came from the gods, angered by mortal arrogance. Others swore that it began the night the king betrayed his sacred oath to the blood covenant, an ancient pact once meant to protect the realm. But one truth spread through every shadow and every prayer. When the kingdom fell, a new power rose. Far beyond the reach of sunlight stood a crimson castle, its towers clawing at the sky. No bird flew near it, no traveler returned from its gates. At night, its windows burned with the faint glow of blood, a pulse that beat like a living heart against the horizon. They said a vampire lord ruled there, eternal, merciless, and hungry for obedience. He offered bargains to the desperate, protection, in exchange for blood. No one dared speak his name aloud, yet every starving family knew it. For in a kingdom where the gods had fallen silent, his name was the only one that still answered. In a crumbling cottage at the edge of the dying fields lived Aria, a farmer's daughter with calloused hands and a heart that refused to surrender. Every morning before dawn, she would drag a worn basket to what little remained of their land, praying that a few stubborn roots might have survived the frost. Her fingers, cracked and bloodied, dug through the hard soil in search of anything edible, a turnip, a shriveled potato, a fragment of hope. Inside the cottage, her mother coughed weakly, her breath rattling like brittle leaves. The sickness had taken hold months ago, slow, merciless, and impossible to cure. Aria's younger brother, Theo, no older than 10, tried to smile for her sake, though his cheeks had hollowed from hunger. He would sit beside the hearth, clutching the little wooden wolf Aria had carved for him when times were still kind. "Eat, Ari," he would whisper, pushing his share of bread toward her. But Aria always refused. "You need it more," she'd say softly, forcing a smile as she watched him nibble what was left of their hope. They had no father anymore. The last war had taken him, along with every other man in their village. Now the nobles demanded taxes from those who had nothing left, while soldiers plundered their homes in the name of order. At night, when the winds howled through the cracks in their walls, Aria would stare at the horizon, where the faint red glow of the vampire lord's castle bled into the sky. The villagers said only fools went near it, but Aria was running out of choices. Each time her mother's coughing worsened. Each time Theo's small body trembled from hunger, she felt the same ache growing stronger in her chest, a pull between love and desperation. "Please," she whispered to the night once, kneeling in the dirt outside her door. "If anyone can hear me, gods, spirits, monsters, help me save them." And in that moment, far away, in the crimson halls of the mountain castle, someone heard her. The stories began as whispers in the marketplace, hushed voices that carried fear and fascination in equal measure. They said that high beyond the misted hills stood Castle Dareth, home of the vampire lord Caelvarin, a creature neither fully man nor shadow. For centuries he ruled the northern lands with silent dominion, demanding no taxes, waging no wars, yet every decade, one mortal would disappear behind his gates. No one ever returned. According to the old women who gathered by the well, those who vanished had entered a blood pact, an ancient bond that traded a single mortal life for protection, wealth, or healing. His magic can cure the dying, some said. His power can turn famine to feast, said others. But most murmured the warning that chilled every heart. The price is always blood, and once you sign, there's no breaking the vow. Aria listened from the edge of the crowd, her shawl pulled close around her face. She pretended not to care, but every word burrowed deeper. A cure for her mother. Food for Theo. A chance to save her family from starvation. That night she asked her neighbor, an old hunter who had once served near the northern border, "Do you believe the stories?" He hesitated. "Believe? Child, I saw one of his messengers once, cloaked in black, eyes like dying embers. The vampire lord doesn't lie, but his mercy is cruel." Aria's heart thudded painfully. "Cruel," she whispered. "Aye," he replied, "because when he gives, he always takes something greater in return." For nights afterward she could not sleep. The storm clouds gathered heavier each day. The crops failed faster and her mother's breath grew shallow as the fever worsened. One evening, when Theo cried himself to sleep from hunger, Aria rose, her decision made. She packed her father's knife, a loaf of bread, and her courage. At the edge of the forest, where the moonlight turned the trees silver, she looked back once at the faint glow of their home. "I'll come back," she whispered, "even if it costs me everything." Then she stepped into the shadows, toward the mountain where the vampire lord waited for the desperate and the brave. In every shadowed corner of the village, his name is a curse and a promise. They call him Lord Varen, the blood tyrant, the eternal one. Mothers hush their children when thunder rolls, warning them not to speak his name aloud. Fathers tell stories by the fire, saying he feeds on hope as much as he does blood. Yet behind the fear, there's something else. Temptation. Because those who go to him sometimes return rich, and sometimes they don't return at all. It is said that when famine strikes, when the rivers dry and the crops rot, he sends ravens into the wind, black-winged messengers carrying whispers of a deal. A blood pact. One life traded for another. One soul bound for eternity. And so, in hushed voices, the villagers bargain with their nightmares. What if the vampire lord would save my child? What if I could endure the curse for the sake of my family? The poor pray not to see his crimson seal at their door. The desperate pray that they do. In every heart where hope has died, his name becomes a flicker of power, a final forbidden chance. And that is why, on a night when hunger gnawed louder than fear, Aria dared to whisper his name. The dawn breaks red, not with sunrise, but with fire. Smoke curls from the thatched roofs of Eldervale, Aria's village, as armored riders storm through the narrow paths. Their banners bear no kingdom's crest, only the black sigil of greed, a jagged serpent coiled around gold. The mercenaries of Lord Terran, men without loyalty or mercy, have come again. They demand their annual tribute, wheat, silver, and blood. Aria watches from her family's doorway as they drag a crying boy from his home, shouting for his father to pay. Her mother clutches her arm, trembling, whispering, "Don't look, don't speak." But Aria cannot turn away. Every year they take more and leave less behind. The wells run dry, the granaries empty, and still they return like vultures circling what remains. When the village elder kneels before the captain, begging for mercy, his pleas are answered with the crack of a whip. A woman screams, a fire spreads. Aria's heart pounds like thunder. Her younger brother hides behind her skirts, eyes wide with fear. This time, she knows they will not stop at gold. They will take lives. And when the captain demands her father's last coins, his life's work, and still sneers, "Too little," something inside Aria breaks. She looks toward the northern hills, the cursed land where no one dares tread, where the wind whispers one name in the dark, the vampire lord. She knows the stories, she knows the price. But tonight, if she must choose between fear and death, she will choose the monster. The mercenaries' laughter echoes through the smoke-stained air. Aria's little brother, Finn, barely 12, tries to fight back when the soldiers snatch their last loaf of bread. He throws a stone, small, desperate, and it strikes the captain's armor with a hollow clang. The man turns slowly, then smiling cruelly, he seizes the boy by the neck. Perhaps the brat can pay the rest, he sneers, dragging Finn toward the horses. Aria lunges forward, screaming his name, but another soldier grips her arm, forcing her down into the dirt. Her nails claw the ground. Her voice breaks with rage and helplessness. Her mother, Mira, runs forward, sobbing. "Please, he's just a child. Take me instead." But the captain only laughs and shoves her aside. She hits the ground hard and doesn't rise. The world seems to go still. Aria crawls to her mother's side, shaking her, calling her name, but Mira's face is pale, her breathing shallow. The years of hunger and worry have weakened her heart, and now the shock has struck it like a blade. Aria looks up through her tears to see her brother struggling, crying her name as they tie him to a post. Something inside her, the part that still hoped someone else would save them, finally dies. Her voice trembles as she whispers to the wind, "If the stories are true, if he can hear me, I'll give him anything." That night, when the village falls silent under ashes and despair, Aria takes one last look at her family and walks toward the cursed hills where the vampire lord is said to dwell. At dawn, Aria goes to the manor house on the hill, the home of the nobles sworn to protect her village. She kneels at the iron gates, bruised and covered in soot. "Please," she begs, "my brother's been taken. My mother is dying. I'll do anything. Just send your guards." But the guards block her path, their eyes full of contempt. One mutters, "We've already paid the tribute. Your village failed to deliver theirs. You're not our concern." The gates close with a heavy clang. For a moment, Aria just stands there, trembling in disbelief. Her hands curl into fists. These were the same nobles who came to her father's burial, who promised to protect their people, yet now they turn away as children are dragged off like cattle. She realizes then that no one is coming. No help, no mercy, no justice. That night, as a storm brews on the horizon, she takes her father's old dagger and a lantern. Her mother sleeps weakly by the fire, whispering prayers in her fevered dreams. Aria leans down and kisses her forehead. "Forgive me, Mama," she whispers. "I'll bring him back, whatever it costs." Then she slips into the darkness beyond the fields, past the chapel ruins and into the forest no one dares enter. The path twists like a serpent. Shadows seem to watch. The wind carries whispers of deals struck in blood, of souls that never returned. But Aria keeps walking. Every step is a vow. If the vampire lord truly grants power in exchange for blood, then she will pay the price herself. The forest stretches endlessly before Aria, a labyrinth of gnarled trees and whispering shadows. The moon hangs low, swollen and red, staining the fog with its eerie glow. Every rustle makes her heart jolt. The air feels alive, thick with the remnants of old curses. Faces seem to flicker in the mist, hollow-eyed spirits that watch her pass, murmuring words she cannot understand. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howls, long, mournful, and close enough to chill her blood. She clutches her lantern tighter, its flame fluttering against the wind. "I'm not afraid," she mutters under her breath, but her trembling hand betrays her. A cold gust rushes past and her light flickers out. Darkness swallows her whole. She stumbles through the undergrowth until she sees it, a crimson glow pulsing through the fog. At first she thinks it's fire, but as she draws closer, she realizes it's the castle itself. Its black towers rise from the mountain like fangs, their stained glass windows burning red as if filled with living blood. The air hums with magic, dark, seductive, ancient. The massive gates are carved from bone and iron, etched with runes that shimmer faintly in the gloom. She hesitates only for a heartbeat before pressing her palm against them. The gates groan open on their own. A gust of cold air rushes out, heavy with the scent of roses and something metallic. Her heartbeat pounds in her ears as she steps inside the courtyard. Somewhere deep within those walls she can feel it. A presence waiting, watching, aware of every breath she takes. Aria swallows hard, straightens her shoulders, and whispers to herself, "If this is the path to save them, then I will walk it to the end." And the gates close behind her with a final echoing boom. Aria stands before the towering doors, carved with scenes of angels and demons locked in eternal battle. The carvings almost seem to move in the dim light, their eyes flickering like dying embers. She raises her hand to knock, but before her fingers touch the cold metal, the doors swing open with a deep, resonant groan. A gust of icy air rushes out, carrying with it the scent of iron, roses, and something older, something that smells like time itself. The silence that follows feels alive. The only sound is the echo of her heartbeat in her ears. Inside, the grand hall stretches endlessly, lit by hundreds of candles that burn with blood-red flames. The shadows dance on the walls, forming strange, shifting shapes. It feels expectant, as if the castle itself has been holding its breath, waiting for her. "Hello?" Aria calls softly, her voice trembling against the vast emptiness. No reply, only the faint crackle of candlelight. Then from the far end of the hall, a whisper, not from a human throat, but from the walls themselves. "Welcome, Aria." She freezes. How does it know her name? The doors slam shut behind her, the echo thundering through the chamber. She spins around, trapped now, her exit sealed. The torches flare brighter, revealing portraits of pale-faced figures, each wearing the same sigil on their necks, a mark shaped like a crescent fang. Their painted eyes seem to follow her every step. Heart hammering, Aria steps forward toward the grand staircase. Each step feels like walking into a heartbeat, slow, deliberate, inescapable. Somewhere above, she hears footsteps descending, heavy, measured, regal. And though she cannot yet see him, she feels it, the pull of something ancient, powerful, and impossibly aware of her presence. The vampire lord knows she's here, and he's been waiting. At the top of the grand staircase, shadow and light intertwine. Then he appears. Lucian, the vampire lord. He moves with a grace that feels almost inhuman, every step deliberate, soundless, like the air itself parts for him. His long black coat glimmers faintly in the candlelight, lined with crimson silk that sways like spilled blood. His face is carved from something too perfect to be mortal. Sharp cheekbones, lips pale as frost, eyes glowing faintly red, like dying embers in a hearth. Yet beneath that beauty lies something colder, a stillness that makes the world around him seem to fade. Aria's breath catches. She can't look away. He's both magnetic and terrifying, like a blade that glitters just before it cuts. When he finally speaks, his voice is low and resonant, the kind that vibrates in her bones rather than her ears. "You crossed my forest alone," he says. "Few live long enough to knock on my door." Aria steadies herself, gripping her lantern tighter. "I came to make a deal," she replies, her voice soft but firm. Lucien's lips curve into something between a smile and a sneer. "A deal," he murmurs as if tasting the word. "Mortals always come with those. What could you possibly offer me, little flame?" His crimson gaze drifts over her, not lustful, but curious, as though he's reading her thoughts and measuring the worth of her soul. Aria forces herself to meet his eyes. "My blood," she says quietly, "in exchange for my family's safety." The silence that follows feels heavy, sacred. Then Lucian steps closer, descending the final stair until he stands before her, taller, colder, his presence consuming the space between them. He reaches out and touches her chin with a single gloved finger, tilting her face upward. "So brave," he whispers, his breath cool as winter air. "Or so foolish." Then his smile sharpens, revealing the faintest glint of fangs. "Very well. Let us see how far your courage truly runs." The candles flicker violently, as if the castle itself shivers at his words. The deal has begun. Lucian circles Aria slowly, like a predator studying its prey. The hem of his coat brushes the marble floor, leaving faint trails of red mist in its wake. His voice, smooth as silk and sharp as a blade, fills the vast hall. "You came seeking mercy, yet mercy is not something I give," he says. "But I do honor my pacts." Aria's throat tightens. "You can protect them? My brother, my mother, can you keep them safe?" Lucian pauses behind her. She can feel his cold breath against her neck. "Their lives, their health, their safety, guaranteed, as long as you belong to me." She turns to face him. "Belong to you?" A faint smirk crosses his lips. "A blood pact, little flame. You offer your blood, and in return, I bind my power to your wish. But every gift of immortality demands a sacrifice." He lifts his hand, and from the shadows, a silver chalice drifts toward them, glowing faintly with crimson light. Inside it, a dark liquid swirls, half blood, half magic, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Drink from this, and the pact will seal," he says. "Your family will live, but your soul will be bound to mine, until my death, or yours." Aria's breath trembles. Her mind races. A soul bond, eternal servitude. But the memory of her mother's weak voice and her brother's screams echo louder than fear. She meets his eyes. "If it's the only way, then I accept." Lucian's gaze flickers with something unreadable, surprise, perhaps admiration. Then slowly, he draws a blade from his side. Its edge gleams like liquid moonlight. He slices his palm open without flinching, crimson welling up. He offers her the blade. "Your turn." Her hand shakes as she mirrors the act, the sting sharp and cold. Their blood mingles as he presses his hand to hers, the contact searing, binding. The air shimmers. Symbols blaze across the floor, ancient and alive. A voice, not his, not hers, whispers from the dark. "Bound by blood, sealed by will, life for life, soul to soul." Lucian releases her hand at last, eyes burning brighter than ever. "It is done," he says softly. "Your family is safe, and you are mine." Aria stumbles back, the world spinning as a strange warmth spreads through her veins. His power, his essence, his mark. The bond has been forged, and her fate is no longer her own. The hall falls utterly silent. The only sound is the faint dripping of blood from Lucian's blade, a rhythm like a heartbeat echoing in her skull. Aria stands frozen, staring at the silver chalice pulsing faintly with red light. Every instinct, screams run. The air feels thick, suffocating, as if the castle itself waits for her answer. Lucien watches her with that unreadable stillness, a creature carved from darkness and patience. His crimson eyes glint, not pleading, not threatening, simply waiting. "You hesitate," he murmurs, "wise for a mortal. My kind doesn't make promises lightly." Aria's voice shakes as she whispers, "You're asking for my soul. I am asking for your choice," Lucian replies smoothly, "and every choice carries a price." Her gaze drops to the blood swirling inside the cup. Images flash in her mind, her brother's terrified face as the mercenaries dragged him away, her mother coughing blood on the cold floor, the noble's gate slamming in her face. Tears blur her vision. She knows this isn't bravery, it's desperation, but she cannot go back empty-handed. She meets his gaze again. "You swear they'll live?" Lucian steps closer, his shadow falling over her like a cloak. His voice lowers, velvet and solemn. "By my blood and by the old law, they will live, untouched. Their pain will end when this pact is sealed." Her heartbeat pounds so loudly it drowns everything else. Her hand trembles as she reaches for the chalice. The cup is warm, alive, and as her fingers close around it, the glow intensifies. Lucien tilts his head slightly, studying her. Once you drink, there is no turning back. You will carry my mark. You will walk between life and death until I release you, or eternity ends. Aria exhales shakily, tears falling freely now. If it means they'll be safe, I accept. She lifts the chalice to her lips. The liquid burns like fire and ice as it slides down her throat, her body trembling with the force of it. For a heartbeat, everything inside her screams, then goes still. Lucien watches in silence, a faint glimmer of intrigue in his eyes. Brave little mortal, he murmurs. You've just stepped into eternity. A crimson light flares briefly across her wrist, the mark of the blood pact, glowing like molten gold before fading into her skin. The deed is done. Her fate, sealed in blood. The vampire lord gestures with a single hand, and the chamber awakens. Candles burst to life in perfect unison, their flames black at the core and crimson at the tips. The air hums with low, vibrating energy, as though the walls themselves are whispering in an ancient tongue. Aria stands trembling at the center of a massive sigil drawn in shimmering blood. Its lines twist and coil like living veins across the marble floor. The scent of iron fills her lungs, heavy and metallic. Lucien begins to chant, slow, deep, and inhumanly beautiful. Each word rolls through the air like thunder under silk. The syllables twist reality itself. Shadows stretch and dance, the castle groaning in response. Aria feels it, the magic, crawling beneath her skin. Her heartbeat falters, replaced by something older, colder, yet intoxicatingly powerful. The sigil brightens, pulsing in rhythm with her pulse. Her vision blurs, the candles flicker like beating wings. She wants to scream but cannot. Her voice is caught between worlds. Lucien's eyes gleam red as he extends his hand. His wrist bears a cut that glows faintly gold. Ancient vampire blood. He lets a single drop fall onto the sigil. By blood bound, by breath sealed, by darkness and dawn, we are one. His voice resonates through her bones. The ground trembles. The candles flare higher, twisting into spirals of smoke and light. Aria gasps as a searing pain ignites across her chest, the mark of the blood pact carving itself into her flesh. The pain is unbearable, yet beneath it she feels power, vast, endless, seductive. Her vision fades between light and shadow. She sees flashes, her village safe, her family freed. Then a brief image of herself standing beside Lucien, eyes glowing like fire. When the final word is spoken, silence crashes down. The candles flicker out one by one until only Lucien remains visible, his face calm, unreadable. He steps forward, his hand brushing her cheek gently. It is done, he whispers. You belong to my blood now. Aria stumbles, breathing hard, her veins still burning with crimson light. The sigil beneath her fades, leaving only the faint echo of a heartbeat that is no longer entirely her own. The silence after the ritual is deafening, a silence so thick it presses against Aria's ears. Then, like a storm breaking, something surges inside her. A burning rush of energy floods her bloodstream, wild and unstoppable. It's as though fire and ice collide beneath her skin, every heartbeat echoing with Lucien's power. Her breath quickens, her hands tremble. She gasps, clutching her chest. Her pulse feels too strong, too fast. For a heartbeat she hears two rhythms, her own and his. The world sharpens. The shadows breathe. She can see the flutter of wings in the rafters above, hear the whisper of blood flowing through Lucien's veins as if it were music. Every sense is heightened, almost unbearable. Her reflection in the obsidian floor shows faint veins glowing red beneath her skin, fading as quickly as they appeared. The mark of the blood pact glows faintly at her collarbone, intricate, beautiful, and terrifying. Lucien watches her with calm intensity. The bond is sealed, he murmurs, his voice soft yet commanding. My strength will protect you now, but it comes with a price. Aria steadies herself, still reeling. What price? He steps closer, his presence cold and magnetic. Your soul is no longer fully yours. My power lives in you. As long as my blood flows, so will yours. And should you betray the pact? He lets the words hang, eyes glinting like garnets. Her throat tightens, but she nods. If it saves them, then so be it. Lucian's expression flickers, almost human for a moment. Admiration or sorrow, she cannot tell. Then it's gone. The bond hums softly between them, a thread of crimson energy, unseen but unbreakable. Aria feels it pulse whenever he moves, like a whisper inside her heart. For the first time, she understands. This was not merely a bargain. It was a binding. Body, soul, and destiny. The ritual chamber still glows with dying embers of crimson light. Aria sways on her feet, dizzy from the blood magic coursing through her. The air hums, heavy, alive, as the last words of the incantation fade into silence. Then, from the shadows of the throne, Lucian rises. His cloak ripples like spilled ink, his eyes glowing with a cruel, beautiful certainty. He steps close, so close she can feel the chill radiating from his skin. His hand lifts her chin, forcing her gaze to meet his. It is done, he says quietly, but the words carry the weight of an oath and a warning. Aria's lips tremble. My family, they'll be safe now. Lucian's gaze softens just slightly. Yes, as long as you remain true to your bond. He lets his fingers trail down the side of her neck, stopping where the blood sigil burns faintly under her skin, his mark glowing red like a live ember. You carry my seal now, he murmurs. From this moment, you are bound to me, until the pact is fulfilled. Her breath catches. Bound. How long? He tilts his head, studying her as though she were both fascinating and fragile. Until the blood debt is paid. Until I release you, or your heart stops beating. The words sink into her like cold iron. Aria feels the weight of them settle on her soul. The pact had saved her family, yes, but it had also chained her to the monster who stood before her. Lucian's expression hardens again, the fleeting warmth gone. Do not fear, little mortal, he says with chilling grace. Serve faithfully, and I will not harm you. Defy me, and not even death will grant you freedom. He turns away, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. From this night onward, Aria of the Lowlands belongs to the House of Night. The doors open with a gust of icy wind. She clutches her chest where his mark glows faintly beneath her skin, realizing she has stepped beyond the reach of human laws into a world where her life, her will, and perhaps even her heart now belong to a vampire. From the moment the pact is sealed, Aria's life no longer belongs to the daylight. The Crimson Castle becomes her world, a vast labyrinth of echoing halls, veiled mirrors, and silent watchers. Servants drift through the corridors like ghosts, their eyes lowered, their voices never raised above a whisper. Some are human, others not entirely so. Their pale skin and too smooth movements betray centuries of servitude. Every dawn, when the last light of the sun brushes the horizon, the castle doors lock tight, sealing its inhabitants from the mortal world. And when night falls, the true court awakens. Aria is brought before the Steward of Shadows, a tall woman with silver eyes named Seraphine, who explains the rules with chilling precision. Rule 1, she says, circling Aria like a hawk. Never enter the East Wing. It is the Lord's private domain. Rule 2, never spill blood without permission. Rule 3, when summoned, come. No matter the hour, no matter the fear. Aria listens, heart hammering, as Seraphine's gaze lingers on the faint red mark pulsing on her neck, the symbol of the blood pact. You are bound by the Lord's will. His command is your breath. His hunger, your offering. Days turn into nights, nights into endless lessons. Aria learns to move in silence, to read the glimmering sigils etched into walls, to serve without trembling when vampires glide past her in the corridors. She learns that every meal, every candle, every whisper in the castle revolves around one truth. Lucien's will is law. But beneath the dread, a strange sense of power hums within her. The bond that ties her to Lucien also grants her glimpses of his strength, sharp instincts, heightened hearing, an unholy awareness of the night. Sometimes when she closes her eyes, she can feel him, distant yet near, like a shadow just behind her soul. The castle terrifies her, yes, but something in its darkness calls to her. Each rule she learns feels less like a chain and more like a key, unlocking pieces of a world she was never meant to see. And though she tries to deny it, part of her wonders, is she truly his prisoner? Or is she becoming something else entirely? Sleep no longer brings Aria peace. Each night, as the castle sinks into deeper silence, whispers creep through her chamber, faint at first, like the rustling of silk, then clear enough to form her name. Aria. The voice is smooth and dark, wrapping around her mind like smoke. Sometimes it sounds like Lucien, deep and commanding. Other times it's softer, almost pleading, as if another presence hides within the same soul. When she shuts her eyes, dreams take her to strange, burning worlds. She stands on a battlefield beneath a crimson moon, surrounded by fire and ash. A pair of golden eyes glows through the smoke, and fangs flash, not in hunger, but in agony. The dream always ends the same way, with the feeling of cold lips brushing her throat, followed by a whisper, "You are mine." Each morning she wakes drenched in sweat, the mark of the blood pact pulsing like a heartbeat beneath her skin. No matter how tightly she wraps her cloak or how many candles she lights, the shadows seem to breathe around her, watching, waiting. At first she believes it's madness, the price of fear and sleeplessness. But soon, the line between dream and reality begins to blur. Sometimes her reflection flickers in the mirror, showing not her own face but a pale, red-eyed version, regal, ancient, and terrifying. And when she wanders the halls at night, she senses him, Lucien, not physically present, yet everywhere. His presence hums through the walls, the air, even her own blood. It's as if the castle itself is alive, and it knows she doesn't belong. Still, part of her can't resist the pull. Something deep within her stirs when the shadows whisper. A strange recognition, a memory not her own. Because somewhere in those dreams of fangs and fire, she feels something that terrifies her more than death itself. Longing. Aria had sworn to keep her distance, to see Lucien only as the monster who had trapped her in a blood bond. Yet each time he entered the hall, each time his voice echoed through the shadows, something about him tugged at the edges of her resolve. He was terrifying in presence. Tall, cold, with skin like moonlight, and eyes that glowed faintly red. But beneath that immortal stillness, she began to notice flickers of something else. It started with small things. The way his gaze lingered too long on the moon through the high, arched windows. The way his hand would hover over an old painting before pulling back, as if touching it might reopen an old wound. The way his tone softened, almost imperceptibly, when he spoke her name. One evening, she caught him alone in the great hall. The fire had long burned out, and yet he sat motionless before the cold hearth, staring into the ashes. His cloak hung around him like a shadow, but his face was unguarded, pale, weary, human. Their eyes met. For the first time, Aria didn't see a predator looking at his prey. She saw a man who had lived too long, burdened by centuries of isolation. His gaze was distant, lost somewhere beyond time, as if haunted by ghosts only he could see. And in that moment, her fear wavered. There was pain behind those crimson eyes, not malice, not hunger, but a sorrow so deep it almost broke her heart. He noticed her watching. His mask of coldness returned instantly, his jaw tightening, his voice low and sharp. "Do not look at me like that," he warned. "You know not what I am." But Aria couldn't look away. For the first time since their blood pact, she whispered softly, "Then show me." Lucian turned away, his expression unreadable. "No one ever asks to see," he murmured. That night, as Aria lay in her bed, she couldn't shake the memory of his eyes that looked not like a monster's, but like a man begging to be freed from the weight of eternity. And though she didn't understand why, she began to wonder if the curse that bound her might not be the only one that needed breaking. Lucian had taken countless pacts through the centuries, desperate mortals offering blood, life, or souls in exchange for fleeting safety. None of them had ever mattered to him. They were all the same, frightened, trembling, eager to serve, their hearts already broken by the time they reached his door. But Aria was different. From the first moment he saw her standing in the moonlit hall, trembling, yes, but unyielding, he had felt something stir within him, something he had long believed dead. She spoke to him without begging. She met his eyes without flinching. She carried herself with quiet defiance even as her pulse beat loud with fear. It intrigued him. It tempted him. Each day he found himself watching her, through the flicker of candlelight at dinner, in the reflection of dark mirrors, even from the shadows where he thought she couldn't see. She moved with grace, her hands steady as she arranged herbs for healing, her voice soft yet certain when she dared speak to him. There was warmth in her, a kind of light his world had long forgotten, and that light called to him like blood. At night, when the scent of her reached him, pure, alive, his hunger clawed at the edge of control. The beast within him, bound by centuries of thirst, urged him to claim what was his by the pact. Her pulse sang to him like music. Her very presence made the darkness hum. But every time he approached, something in her gaze stopped him. She didn't fear him the way others did, at least not entirely. There was curiosity there and pity, and a strange, dangerous trust that disarmed him more than any blade. He would retreat into the shadows, fangs aching, eyes burning, whispering to himself, "She is not yours. Not like that." He had promised her safety. He would not break it. Still, his control grew thinner with each passing night. The blood bond connected them. He could feel her heartbeat even across the castle, could sense her dreams flickering like distant candles. And as much as he despised it, Lucian began to realize something far more dangerous than hunger was taking root. He wasn't just craving her blood. He was falling. For her courage, for her kindness, for the way she made the silence in his cursed heart begin to stir again. The truth comes to her not from Lucian himself, but from a whisper in the castle archives, a voice trapped in parchment and ink. One restless night, unable to sleep, Aria wanders the endless corridors until she finds herself before a grand, dust-covered door. The library. It smells of old parchment, candle wax, and secrets long buried. A book lies open on the central table, ancient, bound in crimson leather. Her fingers tremble as she turns its pages. The illustrations are haunting. A young man with golden hair and kind eyes standing before a burning kingdom. Below it, an inscription reads, "To save his realm from the plague of death, the prince offered his soul to the god of night." Aria's breath catches. The name beneath the passage chills her blood. Lucien Vallemont. The words that follow unfold like a nightmare and a prayer combined. Centuries ago, his people had been dying. Villages emptied by famine and disease. Desperate, Lucian sought the aid of a divine being said to dwell beneath the moon. But mercy came with a cruel price. The god offered him power, the strength to heal, the blood to sustain life, yet cursed him and his bloodline with eternal thirst. To save his people, Lucian drank from the god's chalice, sealing the fate of his soul. He watched his kingdom prosper, while he burned from the inside out. Aria closes the book, her heart aching. For the first time, the fear she'd felt for Lucien transforms into sorrow. He wasn't born a monster. He became one out of love, out of sacrifice. That night, when she faces him again, she sees the faintest flicker of humanity behind his crimson eyes. "Is it true?" she whispers. "You gave up your soul to save them." Lucien's expression tightens. For a long moment he says nothing. Then, his voice, low and bitter, fills the silence. "I saved them, and they hunted me for what I became." His gaze drops to the mark glowing faintly on her wrist, the blood pact that binds them. "Now you see, little mortal. Mercy and damnation are often the same thing." Aria's heart twists. She steps closer, her fear melting into compassion. "Then maybe it's time someone shows you mercy in return." Lucien's eyes flicker with something unreadable. Longing, perhaps, or grief too ancient to name. For the first time, the vampire lord looks at her not as his blood-bound servant, but as the one person who might free him from a curse older than time itself. Days turn into nights, and nights into something softer, something neither Aria nor Lucien dares to name. The blood pact that once felt like a chain begins to feel like a thread, invisible, glowing faintly between them, pulling them closer with every heartbeat. Aria finds herself drawn to the vampire lord not because of his power, but in spite of it. Beneath his cold restraint, she begins to glimpse the man he once was, the prince who loved his people enough to damn himself for them. She sees it in the way he lingers by the window before dawn, watching the sunlight he can never touch, in the way he brushes his fingers over old relics from his lost kingdom, not as trophies, but as memories. And he, in turn, watches her with growing fascination. Lucien has lived for centuries surrounded by silence, obedience, and fear. But Aria, she talks to him. She challenges him. She dares to laugh in the halls where no laughter has lived for 100 years. Her presence stirs the stillness, bringing color back to his world. Sometimes their hands brush when she brings him wine. His touch should chill her, but instead, warmth spreads through her veins. The mark of their pact glows faintly, pulsing in rhythm with their joined hearts. He notices it too. One night he catches her gaze across the candlelit table. His voice, usually sharp, softens. "You should fear me, Aria." She holds his eyes. "Maybe I did. Once." That answer shakes something loose inside him. From that night onward, their conversations stretch longer. They talk about the world outside the castle, about the stars, about what it means to be free. He listens, truly listens, as though her words are sunlight breaking through centuries of night. But as their closeness deepens, so does the danger. The blood pact was not made for love. It was a bond of dominance, a tether of power. And now, that bond thrums with something new, something the dark magic within it cannot contain. When Lucien touches her hand, the room trembles slightly. Candles flicker. The castle seems to watch. Something ancient stirs within both of them, a force that feels like destiny or destruction. Neither of them expected to find love in a curse. Yet as their eyes meet, the truth becomes undeniable. They are no longer master and servant. They are becoming one heartbeat. Weeks after the blood pact is sealed, word spreads quietly through the valley. The healer's family has been visited by riders cloaked in black and silver. Aria's mother, frail but alive, opens her door one morning to find a velvet chest resting on the threshold. Inside it gleams a fortune in gold coins, enough to rebuild their ruined home and pay every debt tenfold. Alongside the chest lies a single parchment, sealed with a crest shaped like a crimson rose entwined with thorns, Lucien's mark. By decree of Lord Valamont, the family of Aria of Greystone is under his protection. None shall harm or take from them on pain of blood. Her brother, still weak from captivity, stares in disbelief as armored riders dismount from their shadowy horses. These are not men of the king, but Lucien's own. Pale, silent, disciplined, with eyes that glint faintly red in the dusk. They bring food, medicine, and a vow of safety. Neighbors whisper in awe and fear. No one dares touch the healer's family again. Some call them blessed, others cursed, servants of the vampire lord. But Aria's family knows only gratitude. For the first time in years, no soldiers come demanding tribute, no mercenaries threaten their land. Her mother kneels in prayer, clutching the gold and whispering her daughter's name. May the gods protect you, my brave girl, whatever bargain you made. Far away, in his high crimson halls, Lucien watches through the enchanted mirror that binds him to his realm. He sees Aria's family kneeling in relief, their faces brightened with safety and hope. A rare softness touches his expression. He has done this not for duty, not for power, but for her. The price he paid for her blood pact wasn't just control. It was care, protection extended to her bloodline as his own. That night when Aria learns what he's done, her heart tightens. You didn't have to do that, she whispers. Lucian's eyes meet hers, dark, unflinching and tender beneath the cold. You gave me your blood. Protecting what is yours is my law. For a moment, neither speaks. The air between them hums with emotion. Neither can name, not yet love, but something dangerously close. And in that fragile silence, Aria realizes that the monster she feared has begun to act like a man. While Aria's family rejoices in their newfound safety, whispers spread through the village like wildfire. At first it only murmurs. Her family's been blessed overnight. No mortal lord sends gold without reason. But soon envy turns to suspicion, and suspicion to fear. The village priests, robed in white and silver, summon the people to the chapel square. The air smells of incense and judgment. Candles flicker beneath the carved statues of saints, their stone eyes seeming to watch the crowd with silent disapproval. No gift comes from the night without a price, Father Darren proclaims, his voice echoing through the cold air. The healer's daughter has made a pact, not with God, but with the damned. Gasps ripple through the villagers. Women clutch their children close. Men mutter darkly, crossing themselves as if to ward off evil. They remember how Aria disappeared weeks ago and returned changed, her eyes brighter, her presence unsettling, the faint shimmer of ancient magic clinging to her like mist. The priests claim she bears the mark of the Blood Lord, the cursed emblem of a soul tied to darkness. Soon, her family's doorstep is stained with ash and salt, offerings left by frightened neighbors to purify the air. Children whisper that Aria walks with shadows. Even her mother, once comforted by the gold, begins to tremble when the wind howls at night. And far away in the Crimson Castle, Lucian feels the stirrings of unrest through the bond. His blood pact vibrates with her fear. They will burn her if they learn the truth, he murmurs to himself. His rage builds, ancient and cold. But deeper still is something more dangerous, the desire to protect her. That night, he steps onto his balcony, the moonlight staining his pale hands silver. Shadows gather at his feet, whispering of mortal hatred and holy fire. They call her cursed, he says, eyes narrowing. Then let them see what true darkness fears. The wind howls as bats rise from the castle towers like a storm. Lucian's vengeance has begun, not out of cruelty, but out of love disguised as wrath. The whispers of the priests grow into war cries. By the next moon, the Order of the Silver Dawn rides out. Holy hunters draped in cloaks of ash gray, their blades forged in sacred fire. They are trained to kill what the church calls the Nightborn. Their leader, Inquisitor Merrick, bears a scar over one eye, a mark left by a vampire's claw long ago. His hatred burns brighter than faith. The Bloodlord has risen once more, he declares before the villagers, and the girl Aria is his vessel. We will purge this land before his darkness spreads. Torches flare against the night as armored riders thunder through the forest paths. Wolves scatter, ravens shriek from the treetops. Back in the Crimson Castle, Lucian senses them coming. a surge of holy fire pressing against the wards that protect his domain. His hand tightens around the black iron railing. The church moves faster than I expected, he mutters. They bring silver, sunfire, and vengeance. Aria stands beside him, pale with fear. They'll kill my family, she whispers. They think I've betrayed them. Lucian's eyes flash crimson in the dim torchlight. They will not touch what is mine. She flinches, not at the possessiveness in his tone, but at the truth beneath it. He means her, and everyone she loves. Below, the castle stirs to life. The ancient guardians awaken, shadow knights and wolf sentinels sworn to protect their lord. The air thickens with a storm that smells of blood and thunder. As the hunters approach the gates, chanting their prayers of fire and light, the first drop of rain falls, black as ink. Lucian turns to Aria. Stay hidden. What comes tonight is not for mortal eyes. But she grabs his hand, trembling, defiant. If they come for you, they'll face me too. He looks at her, and for a heartbeat his ancient heart remembers what love once felt like. Then thunder breaks the sky, and the battle between holy fire and immortal night begins. The storm hasn't stopped for hours. Lightning claws at the sky and thunder echoes like war drums rolling from the mountains. Aria rushes through the grand corridor, her bare feet echoing against the marble. The torches flicker wildly, painting frantic shadows across the crimson walls. She bursts into the throne room and finds Lucian standing before the great stained glass window, staring into the raging night. Outside, hundreds of torches burn like a sea of stars. The hunters have arrived. Lucien, she gasps, clutching his arm. You have to go. They've surrounded the castle. You can still escape through the eastern cliffs. He turns slowly, his expression unreadable beneath the soft glow of the moonlight. And run, he says quietly. I have been running for centuries, Aria. From them, from myself. She shakes her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. They'll kill you. You can't fight them all. Lucian's crimson eyes flicker with a sadness deeper than the storm. If I run, they'll find another monster to hunt. They'll burn another home, destroy another girl's life. He steps closer, his hand brushing a tear from her face with the gentleness of a man long denied tenderness. But if I stay, perhaps the darkness ends with me. Aria grips his hand tightly. You're not darkness, she whispers. Not anymore. He smiles faintly, the kind of smile that carries both love and farewell. Then stay behind me, little light. I will face their dawn. Outside, the horns of the hunters sound, a low, terrible call that shakes the very stones. The castle trembles as arrows of silver ignite the night sky. Lucian turns toward the massive iron doors, his cloak billowing like black fire. His voice deepens, commanding the shadows to rise and defend their master. Aria watches, torn between terror and awe, as the man she once feared becomes something else entirely. A warrior, not a monster. And as the first explosion rocks the castle walls, she whispers through trembling lips, Then I'll face it with you. The night explodes with the roar of battle. Arrows of silver slice through the sky like falling stars, embedding into the castle walls with bursts of blue fire. The once silent halls of crimson and gold now echo with the clang of swords, the cries of dying men, and the shattering of ancient glass. From the towers, Lucian's loyal guards, pale, fierce, and fast as shadows, descend upon the invaders, their blades flashing in the lightning. But the hunters are many, armored in holy sigils and burning faith. Aria stands at the balcony, clutching the iron rail as the courtyard below becomes a storm of blood and fire. Her heart pounds. Every scream, every flash of light cuts through her chest like a blade. Then the doors burst open behind her. Lucian strides through, his eyes glowing like molten rubies, cloak torn and bloodied, but his presence unshaken. They've breached the southern wall, he growls, voice sharp as thunder. We hold them here. No mercy, no retreat, Aria's breath trembles. Lucian, there are too many. You'll die. He gives her a quick, sorrowful glance, then unsheathes his sword. Then I'll die protecting what's mine. The floor shakes as holy fireballs crash through the stained glass, scattering shards like rainbows of death. Aria falls to her knees, covering her head, the air thick with smoke and screams. Through the chaos, she sees a hunter raise a silver crossbow, aimed straight at Lucian. Time slows. "Lucian," she cries, and before she realizes it, she throws herself between them. The arrow pierces her shoulder. Pain sears through her body like liquid fire, and suddenly the blood pact burns to life. Her veins glow crimson. The air shudders. A pulse of ancient power bursts from her, sending every attacker flying across the hall. Lucian catches her before she falls, his eyes wide in disbelief. "Aria, what have you done?" But she only smiles weakly, her blood glowing like firelight. "I think the Pact chose me too." The hunters rally outside, but the tide has shifted. The castle, once silent and cursed, awakens in fury, its walls alive with red light and echoing power. And in the center of it all, Aria and Lucian stand, bound by blood, facing the dawn of war together. The air grows heavy, thick with smoke, magic, and the metallic scent of blood. Aria lies trembling in Lucian's arms, her wound glowing faintly from the Pact's fire. Outside, the hunters chant ancient hymns, their voices cutting through the night like swords of faith. Lucian's fangs bare. His control, the fragile restraint he's held for centuries, begins to crack. "They came to destroy me," he whispers, his voice shaking with fury and grief. "Then they will see me." He rises slowly, the shadows bending toward him as though bowing to their master. His eyes ignite into twin crimson suns. The air splits with a deafening crack as the blood seal on his chest breaks open, glowing like molten gold. His wings tear through his cloak, vast and leathery, stretching across the hall like a storm shadow. Veins of light ripple through his skin, his form no longer human, but a creature of terrible majesty. His once elegant features twist with the agony of centuries of cursed blood, yet beneath the monstrous form his eyes remain heartbreakingly human. Aria gasps, pain and awe mingling in her voice. "Lucian, what are you?" His voice, now layered with darkness, echoes through the castle, both man and myth speaking as one. "I am what your kind made me, and what the night demands I be." With a single beat of his wings, the air bursts apart. Hunters are flung through the air like leaves in a storm. He moves faster than sight, claws flashing, fangs glinting, every strike fueled by rage and love, vengeance and sorrow. Arrows shatter against his skin. Holy flames lick at his cloak, but the fire bends away from him as if afraid. When he roars, the sound shakes the heavens, a sound that makes even the bravest hunter falter. Aria watches through tears, torn between terror and awe. She sees not a monster, but a king in his truest form, ancient, broken, and magnificent. And when his red gaze finds hers across the chaos, she whispers through trembling lips, "You're not the curse, Lucian. You are the storm that breaks it." The shadows surge around him in answer, swallowing the battlefield in crimson fire. The clash of battle fills the great hall, iron against immortal flesh, fire against shadow. Lucian's monstrous wings sweep through waves of attackers, but even his strength begins to falter beneath the priest's holy blades. The glow of sanctified silver burns against his skin like acid, and every wound he takes sends tremors through the pact that binds him to Aria. From her place behind the broken altar, Aria feels his pain through the bond, a searing ache in her chest that steals her breath. She sees one hunter, the High Inquisitor, raising a spear etched with runes, glowing brighter than the rest. Its tip burns with the holy light meant to end Lucian's cursed existence forever. Time slows. Lucian turns. Too late. The spear flies. It cuts through the air, whistling death. Without thinking, Aria runs. Her bare feet slap against the marble floor, blood trailing where shards have cut her skin. The power of the Pact screams in protest, pulling at her soul, warning her she is crossing a forbidden line. A mortal cannot take harm meant for a vampire lord. But she doesn't care. Lucian. She throws herself between him and the spear. The blade pierces her shoulder, a white-hot explosion of pain. For an instant, everything stops. The magic of the Pact fractures, its crimson threads twisting wildly between them. The bond, forged in blood and vow, begins to rewrite itself. No longer master and servant, but equals. Lucian catches her as she collapses, her blood staining his claws. "Foolish girl," he whispers, voice breaking. "You've doomed yourself." But even as the light drains from her eyes, his monstrous form begins to fade, as if her act of sacrifice is undoing the curse itself. Her selfless courage, born of love, not fear, breaks the laws that bound them both. The spear dissolves in light. Lucian roars, clutching her to his chest as the magic surges between them. A crimson aura spreads outward, shattering the priest's weapons and swallowing the hall in silence. Aria's body trembles in his arms. Her heartbeat slows, but her soul glows brighter than ever. No chains, no blood, can bind love, she whispers faintly. The mark of the Pact burns away from her wrist, replaced by a faint golden shimmer, a new bond, pure and chosen. Lucian, trembling, lowers his forehead to hers. "Then I will protect you, not as my servant, but as my equal." And for the first time in centuries, the vampire lord sheds a single tear, crimson and human. As Aria's blood stains his hands, something inside Lucian, long buried beneath centuries of rage, hunger, and darkness, begins to stir. He has felt countless things in his immortal life: power, hunger, vengeance, loss. But this is different. It is warm. It is alive. The world around him fades, the echoing clash of steel, the cries of dying men, even the firestorm raging outside. All that remains is her heartbeat, fragile and fading, beating against his palm like the last flicker of dawn before night swallows the sky. Why would you do this?" he whispers, voice trembling, her eyelids flutter. "Because I saw you, not the monster they fear." The words pierce deeper than any blade. For centuries, Lucian has hidden behind the title Vampire Lord, the bringer of blood and fear, convinced that his humanity was lost to the curse that damned him. But in this moment, as her blood mingles with his tears, the monster inside recoils, and the man he once was begins to awaken. The cold crimson glow of his eyes softens to a molten gold. The air around him shimmers, and the oppressive darkness that clung to his presence begins to lift. His claws retract, his wings fold, and his monstrous visage fades, leaving behind a man, scarred, but unmistakably human. Lucian looks down at his reflection in a pool of blood. For the first time in centuries, he sees himself, not the cursed beast, not the tyrant of nightmares, but the broken soul who once wanted to protect his people. He realizes something devastatingly simple. Aria's act wasn't just to save him, it was to remind him of who he used to be. "You gave me back my soul," he murmurs, his voice breaking. He lifts her gently, cradling her to his chest. A strange warmth spreads from his heart, a pulse of human life he thought long dead. Every beat grows stronger, sinking with hers. The curse, once fed by pain and fear, begins to unravel from within. The walls of the castle tremble as centuries of blood-bound magic start to crumble. Shadows recede. The portraits of the fallen vampires burn to ash, releasing trapped souls into the night. Lucian gazes down at her, brushing the blood from her cheek. "No more monsters," he vows. "No more chains." And as he speaks, the last trace of crimson fades from his eyes, leaving behind the golden hue of the man he once was. In that moment, the vampire lord dies, and Lucian, the man, is reborn. Aria's body grows cold in his arms, her breaths shallow as ash. The wound that saved him now threatens to take her life. Lucian holds her close, trembling, and for the first time in centuries he feels fear. Not for himself, not for death, but for her. He lays her down gently on the marble floor as blood seeps beneath them like a crimson river. Around them, the grand hall, once radiant with gold and power, begins to crumble. The enchantments that had sustained his eternal reign are faltering, breaking apart just as his heart does. "No," he whispers, clutching her hand. "You will not die for me." But her pulse is fading. The bond of the blood pact hums between them, fragile and flickering. And then he remembers the ancient words carved into the spell that made him immortal. Life for eternity, eternity for life. The curse can be reversed, but only at a cost. He kneels beside her, his fangs biting into his wrist. Dark crimson spills, glowing faintly as magic stirs in the air. His voice trembles as he chants the forgotten incantation, the one no vampire dares to speak. "Let my endless night be broken. Let her dawn rise in my place." The castle shudders as the ancient magic awakens. His veins burn with fire, his body convulses as his immortality begins to unravel. Every heartbeat becomes agony, centuries of borrowed time slipping away one pulse at a time. Aria gasps, the color returning to her face. Her wound begins to heal, sealed by his blood, by his sacrifice. But as her life returns, his begins to fade. He feels it, the cold leaving his skin, replaced by warmth he hasn't felt in 1,000 years. The curse that made him eternal is shattering. He will grow old. He will bleed. He will die. Yet he smiles. For the first time in ages, Lucian smiles, not as a lord of darkness, but as a man who has finally chosen love over power. Aria's eyes flutter open, weak and confused. "Lucienne, what did you do?" He brushes her hair back, his fingers trembling. "I gave you back your life," he whispers, his voice barely a breath. "And maybe a piece of my soul too." Tears pool in her eyes as she realizes what he's done. The vampire lord's mark on his chest fades into a faint scar, a symbol of his sacrifice. The crimson glow in his veins turns to gold, and the monstrous aura that haunted him for centuries disappears. Aria presses his hand to her heart, feeling it beat strong again. "Then live," she says softly. "Live as the man you were meant to be." Outside, dawn breaks for the first time over the vampire's castle. Light spills through the shattered windows, bathing them both in gold. And though Lucian feels the last of his immortality slip away, he knows one thing for certain. He has finally found a reason worth dying for. The night roars with battle. Steel clashes against supernatural fury. Fire consumes the ancient halls. Aria, her strength restored by Lucian's sacrifice, fights with desperate resolve. She uses what she's learned from his blood, enhanced senses, uncanny speed, to fend off the hunters. Each swing of her blade is guided not by rage, but by love and the will to protect. Lucian stands beside her, the once immortal vampire lord now mortal yet fierce. His movements are slower, his strikes heavier, fueled by sheer will. The crimson gleam in his eyes flickers faintly. Not hunger, but the last remnants of his fading power. The hunters, sensing his weakness, rally in a final assault. Crossbows fire, silver blades slash, holy fire burns the air. Lucian takes the brunt of it, shielding Aria with his own body, his wings, once vast and black, now tattered and fragile. "Go," he shouts, blood dripping from his lips. "End it." But Aria refuses to leave him. She turns, seizing one of the hunter's own weapons, a silver stake meant to pierce his heart, and drives it into the leader instead. A blinding light bursts through the hall as the last of the hunters fall. The silence that follows is deafening. Smoke and ash drift through the air. Aria collapses beside Lucienne, His once golden eyes are dimming, his breath shallow. The black armor that once marked him as a creature of terror is shattered, revealing the man beneath, scarred, bleeding, yet undeniably human. "It's over," she whispers, touching his face. "No," he breathes weakly. "It's beginning. For you." Tears blur her vision as she cradles him. His heartbeat, though faint, still answers hers, steady, familiar, unwilling to stop. She feels the magic within him fading like the last glow of twilight. The castle's light flickers in response, the walls themselves mourning their master. Outside, dawn approaches. The hunters are gone. The curse is broken. But Lucian, the man who sacrificed eternity, lies dying in her arms. She presses her forehead to his and whispers through tears, "You can't leave me. Not now." He smiles faintly, his voice a trembling whisper. "If I must fade, let it be knowing you lived." The morning sun pierces through the shattered windows, washing over them both. The castle, once shrouded in eternal night, now gleams in golden light. But the man who brought that light can barely hold on to it. Lucien's hand slips from hers. Aria clutches it tighter, refusing to let go. In that fragile moment, between life and death, darkness and dawn, she makes a silent vow. If love could save him once, it will save him again. The battle's echoes fade into silence, leaving only the soft crackle of dying fire and the faint hiss of falling rain. The once majestic crimson hall now lies in ruin. Shattered glass, torn banners, and blood staining the marble floor like a tragic tapestry. Aria kneels beside Lucian, her trembling hands pressing against the wounds that refuse to close. His skin is cold, his breath's uneven. The faint shimmer of magic that once pulsed through him is fading, thread by thread. "Stay with me," she whispers, her voice breaking. "Please, Lucian, stay." Her fingers trace the jagged marks across his chest, symbols of the blood pact that once bound her to him. They now flicker faintly, as if begging to hold on to their fading power. She tears a strip from her torn dress, binding his wounds, washing the blood from his face with trembling care. The scent of iron fills the air, but for the first time she feels no fear, only a fierce tenderness. This was the monster she once sought to bargain with, the creature whispered about in frightened prayers. Yet now, he's the man who gave up eternity for her. Tears fall onto his cheek, mixing with the blood there. She brushes them away, her voice soft and raw. "You were never the darkness," she says. "You were the light, trapped inside it." Lucian stirs weakly, his eyes flickering open. They're not crimson anymore, and only a faint gold like sunlight seen through clouds. He looks at her as if she's the only thing left in his fading world. "You should fear me," he murmurs. "You always should have." "I did," she replies, smiling through tears. "Until I saw your heart." She leans closer, her forehead resting against his. The warmth of her skin seeps into him, fragile, human, but alive. "I don't care what you are," she whispers. "I love you." The words hang in the air, trembling, powerful, binding in their own right. As she speaks them, the blood sigils on their skin pulse faintly once more, not with domination or magic, but with something purer, the echo of a bond transformed by love rather than fear. The storm outside quiets. The air grows still. Aria stays by his side all through the night, tending to his wounds, holding his hand, whispering stories of her village, of sunlight, of hope. She refuses to let him drift away. And somewhere deep within him the remnants of ancient power stir, not from darkness, but from her light. The first rays of dawn slip through the broken windows, scattering gold across the ruined hall. Aria's tears glisten where they've fallen, on Lucien's chest, upon the ancient markings of their cursed bond. For a moment, everything is still. Then, a soft light stirs beneath his skin, faint, trembling, but growing stronger with every heartbeat. The blood sigils that once chained her soul begin to shimmer, their crimson hue fading into a soft, radiant gold. The once binding mark that burned on her wrist starts to shift, its cruel lines curling into a new form, a circle of light intertwined with his crest. Aria gasps as the warmth floods her palm, not burning this time, but soothing, alive. The magic that once claimed her now caresses her like a living breath. "Lucian," she whispers, awe and hope mingling in her voice. "What's happening?" His eyes flutter, open again, faint gold gleaming within them. He looks down at their joined hands where both marks now glow in unison. "The Pact," he murmurs weakly. "It was forged in fear, but you've turned it into something else." The golden light grows stronger, weaving threads of warmth around them. The sigils rise like fireflies, spiraling through the air before settling over their hearts. The ancient chains of domination dissolve, replaced by an unspoken vow, one born of choice, not curse. Aria feels it deep within her, not the weight of ownership but the pulse of shared life. Their hearts beat together, steady and full of quiet strength. "It's no longer blood that binds us," she says softly, tears falling anew. "It's love." Lucian smiles faintly, the first true smile she's ever seen from him. It's weary, fragile, but filled with peace. Outside, the crimson clouds that hung over his castle for centuries begin to part. Light breaks through the gloom, washing over the towers in a golden hue. The blood pact, once a symbol of power and servitude, now shines as a testament to redemption and love. Their bond has changed. Not a curse, not a deal, but a promise, freely given, eternally alive. At first there is silence, heavy, endless, the kind that follows death. Aria's hand trembles on his chest, praying, pleading, waiting for a sign. Then it happens, a faint thump beneath her palm. Once, then again, stronger this time. Her breath catches, the sound that hasn't graced his body for hundreds of years, a heartbeat, echoes softly in the chamber. The air around them trembles. The shadows that once obeyed him retreat into the cracks of the walls. The crimson tint fades from his eyes, replaced by a deep human warmth. Lucian gasps, his lungs struggling as if remembering what it means to breathe. His hand rises unsteady, reaching for her face. "Aria, I can feel it," he whispers, wonder breaking through his voice. "My heart, it's beating." Golden light seeps through his veins, washing away the dark curse that bound him. The black markings across his chest dissolve like smoke, replaced by soft trails of light. His once cold skin warms beneath her touch. The wind shifts. The castle sighs, a long, relieved exhale, as the ancient magic that once chained it begins to crumble. Candles flare to life on their own, filling the room with gentle, trembling brightness. Aria's eyes fill with tears, her voice trembling with both joy and disbelief. "You're alive, Lucian. Truly alive." He nods, emotion breaking through his calm, centuries-old mask. The weight of eternity seems to fall from his shoulders. "For so long I thought my heart was nothing but ash. But you..." He smiles faintly, voice breaking. "You made it remember how to live." The light envelops them both, erasing the last traces of darkness from his body. The vampire lord, the monster feared by kingdoms, now stands reborn, no longer immortal, no longer cursed, but human, fragile, warm, and whole. Outside, dawn finally breaks across the sky, painting the world in gold. And as the first sunlight touches his face, Lucian closes his eyes, feeling it, not as pain, but as peace. For the first time in centuries, the cursed heart of the vampire lord beats not for power, but for love. Far from the castle's towering cliffs, the village of Eldon Hollow stirs in uneasy silence. For generations, they had lived beneath a sky that never knew morning, only endless twilight. Crops had withered, rivers had turned black, and hope had become a story mothers whispered to children before sleep. But then, something changes. As the first light of dawn breaks over the horizon, the villagers gasp. Golden rays pierce through the ever-present mist, scattering the darkness like frightened spirits. The church bells, long rusted and silent, begin to ring on their own, clear, joyful notes echoing through the valley. Children run out into the streets, laughing as they see their shadows stretch behind them. For the first time. Farmers drop to their knees, tears streaking down dirt-stained faces, whispering prayers of thanks. An old woman, the healer who once prophesied that the sun will return when love conquers the grave, stands at her doorstep, clutching her rosary. "It's her," she murmurs, her voice trembling. "The girl who went to the vampire's castle. She's done it." The forests that once seemed haunted now shimmer with light. Flowers bloom overnight, rivers flow clear again, and even the ravens that used to circle above take flight toward the mountains, freed from the spell. In the village square, the statue of the first vampire king cracks down the middle, his stone eyes melting into dust. The curse that had enslaved generations has been broken, and as the villagers look toward the distant castle, glowing faintly against the morning sky, they see a soft golden light pulsing from its towers, a sign that the darkness has fallen forever. They bow their heads, not in fear, but in reverence, because somewhere beyond those hills, a mortal girl's courage and a monster's heart have rewritten the fate of their world. For the first time in 100 years, dawn has returned to Elden Hollow, and with it hope. When word spreads that dawn has returned, the high priests of the Holy Order come to the castle, robes dragging through dew and ash, their once proud heads bowed low. For years they had preached that the vampire lord was a creature of hell, cursed by God and unworthy of redemption. They had condemned Aria, calling her a witch, a defiler of sacred vows. Now, as they approach the marble steps of the Crimson Castle, they find Lucian standing at its gates, not as a monster, but as a man reborn. Gone are the red eyes that once glowed with hunger. Now they shine deep gold, like sunlight reflected in water. His aura, once heavy with death, radiates calm strength. Aria stands beside him, her hand lightly touching his, their bond unbroken, their love undeniable. The oldest priest, Father Corvin, trembles as he steps forward. His voice cracks under the weight of regret. "We called you cursed, my lord. We fought against the very light we prayed for. Forgive us." Lucien looks down at them, the men who had once led armies to destroy him. His silence stretches like a judgment, but when he finally speaks, his voice is soft. "You feared the darkness," he says, "because you never sought to understand it. The curse was not in me. It was in your hearts." The priests lower their eyes, unable to meet his gaze. Then, one by one, they kneel, robes pooling around them like spilled ink upon the dawn-lit steps. Their symbols of faith gleam faintly as sunlight touches them for the first time in decades. Aria watches quietly, tears glinting in her eyes. She feels no hatred for them, only peace. For in their repentance she sees the final sign that the curse is truly gone. Lucien extends a hand toward Father Corvin, lifting him gently. "Rise," he says. "Let this new light guide us all. The age of fear ends today." And as the priests kneel before the reborn Lord, the one they once condemned, the bells of Elden Hollow ring again, not for battle or mourning, but for renewal. The darkness has bowed to the dawn. When the last echoes of battle fade and peace finally settles over the land, silence fills the castle, a silence unlike any before, no longer heavy or haunted but calm, healing. Lucian stands by the grand balcony, the soft glow of sunrise spilling across his face. The curse that had chained his soul for centuries is gone. The shadows that once clung to him like a second skin have lifted. For the first time he feels the pulse of his heart, fragile, human, and real. Behind him, Aria enters the room quietly. Her white gown is torn and stained with ash, yet her presence glows brighter than the dawn itself. She walks toward him, her eyes soft but unsure. Lucien turns to her, the gold in his eyes flickering with sorrow and tenderness. "You are free now," he says, his voice low, carrying the weight of both gratitude and grief. The pact is broken. You owe me nothing anymore. You may return to your family, live a life untouched by darkness. Aria's breath catches. Freedom, the very thing she had once prayed for, stands before her, offered with open hands. Yet her heart feels heavy, not light. She looks at him, truly seeing him, not the vampire lord or the monster of legend, but the man who had protected her family, fought his curse, and bled for her, the man whose loneliness had mirrored her own. "And if I leave?" she asks softly. "Then you will be free," he repeats, "and I will remain as I am." Watching the dawn alone, a tear slips down her cheek. She steps closer, placing her hand against his chest, over the steady rhythm of his new heartbeat. "You gave me more than freedom, Lucian. You gave me hope." He looks down at her, confusion flickering in his eyes as she continues. "I won't run from you. I choose to stay, not because I'm bound, but because I want to." Lucien's composure breaks for the first time. His eyes soften, and his hand rises to cup her face, his thumb tracing the tear along her skin. "Aria," he whispers, the name trembling on his lips like a prayer. The sun rises higher, its golden light washing over them both. Around them, the castle walls shimmer faintly, alive once more. For centuries, Lucian had lived surrounded by servants, subjects, and shadows, yet never truly seen. Now, standing before him, Aria chooses him not as a ruler or savior, but as a man. And in that choice, both their hearts find peace. Days turn into weeks, and weeks into months. The once darkened land begins to breathe again. The curse that had strangled the kingdom for generations fades like smoke, leaving behind the scent of earth, sunlight, and life. The forests that were once blackened by vampire magic now bloom with color. Rivers long poisoned by blood run clear, and the morning sun no longer hides behind eternal clouds. Lucienne and Aria stand at the heart of this rebirth, two souls from opposite worlds, united by sacrifice and love. Lucienne, the once feared vampire lord, now rules not with terror, but wisdom. He dismantles the old system of fear and blood tribute, opening the castle gates to the very people who once trembled at his name. His soldiers, once creatures of the night, now become guardians of peace. He rebuilds his court with mortals and immortals alike, forging something the realm has never seen before: unity. Aria becomes his bridge to humanity. Her compassion tempers his strength, her voice soft yet powerful in council meetings and gatherings. Where he commands with authority, she leads with grace. Villagers come to her for guidance, calling her the heart of the dawn. Together they travel through the villages that had once suffered most. Children run freely in the streets now. The people no longer cower when the royal banners pass. Instead, they bow in respect, not out of fear, but gratitude. Lucian still bears the marks of his dark past. His eyes still gleam faintly red in the moonlight. But no one sees him as a monster anymore. He has become a symbol of redemption, of how even those born in shadow can bring light. On the steps of the Crimson Castle, now covered in vines and flowers, Lucienne and Aria hold a festival, the first dawn celebration in a century. Lanterns float into the sky, illuminating the night with golden fire. As the crowd cheers, Lucienne turns to Aria, whispering, "I once ruled a kingdom of night, but with you, I learned what it means to live in the light." She smiles, her hand finding his. "The light was always there, Lucian. It just needed someone brave enough to believe in it." Their joined hands glow faintly, the last trace of the blood pact, now transformed into a bond of love and power. From the ashes of fear, they rebuild a world where light and dark coexist. A kingdom